Hi, my name is Carson Hebblethwaite. I'm a sophomore BFA acting major at Coastal Carolina University, and I'd like to share my research about disability justice in theater with you. To kick things off, I'm going to talk about how my research started. My initial curiosity started an inclusive theater group, which is pictured here. It's a student-led group on Coastal Carolina's campus where members from the community with a range of disabilities come together with CCU Theater Department students to do theater together once a week. And this group usually culminates in a performance at the end of the spring semester. So, after working and developing close friendships with the people in Inclusive Theater Group, I became curious about what other theater opportunities this community had outside of a university setting. I also realized I had never been exposed to or given the opportunity to be friends with or do theater with this community of people until I was 19 years old. I learned that 1 in 4 Americans have a disability, so I began to think this was really strange. Did I have friends growing up that were experiencing a disability that I might not have known about? Why did I miss out on developing relationships with people who have disabilities? Was it my school environment? Was there intentional separation or unintentional? Thinking about my lack of experience led me to also consider lack of accessibility and representation in a larger context, especially in theater. A practice that brings people together at its core, why was I not seeing my friends be included? I wanted to pick an area with a strong theater community to study, to understand how people who experience disability are or are not included. I chose to focus on Atlanta because it has the largest concentration of arts organizations in the Southeast, plus I have a personal connection to it because it's where I grew up performing and might end up living after school. So, what was my central question to this whole study? Over time, it became, are professional theaters in Atlanta, Georgia, including people who experience a range of disabilities and or who are neurodivergent in their education programming and performances? To begin to find an answer to this question, I developed a survey. I chose 16 professional theater companies, all located in the metro Atlanta area, to ask to participate in my research. Once they gave consent, I sent them a 13-question, story-focused survey that asked questions about their experience with disability theater. The survey began by simply asking 2 yes or no questions. The first being whether or not they had education opportunities for people who experience a range of disability, and the second being if they had performance opportunities for people who experience disability. Then the survey went into more specific questions, like, in your experience, was there a major obstacle to including people with disabilities in your educational programming? And what motivations, goals, or intentions led you to incorporate these types of educational programs or performance opportunities for people with disabilities? So I really wanted to get an understanding of the hows and whys behind whether or not each company was integrating disability inclusion into their theater practice. So I ended up with 6 responses, which is a small sample, primarily because it fell in the wake of a global pandemic, which made people busy, especially artists who now are trying to figure out how to keep their businesses afloat. So I'm going to consider this preliminary research and plan to continue it after all of this clears up. But nevertheless, here are the first visual representations of the answers to those 2 yes or no questions. Regarding education, 83% of the companies indicated that they do have educational programs that include people with disabilities, and 17% said they did not. Regarding performance, it was a 50-50 answer, so half said they do have opportunities for performance for people with disabilities, and half said that they don't. Here are some highlights of the really good things I learned about that the Atlanta theater community offers. Atlanta Shakespeare offers workshops at special learning environment schools, usually schools that are specifically for children on the autism spectrum, and they offer a mix of one-off, 1-week, and 8-week residencies with those schools. True Colors Theater has a history of including students who experience physical disabilities in their August Wilson monologue competition each year, and they identified how including folks with disabilities fits into their mission statement. They said, our work focuses on recognizing and giving a platform to marginalized communities. As people with disabilities are marginalized and often overlooked, giving a voice to people with disabilities would fit perfectly within our mission. I really appreciated how they identified how including people with disabilities fits into the values of their company. And lastly, Alliance Theater discussed teacher training, specifically training their teachers to be prepared to teach students of all ranges of ability. They also talked about their experiences with theater for the very young and children on the autism spectrum. Specifically, they said, "We saw the impact this immersive and interactive work was having with preschoolers on the spectrum and with disabilities. Children who were not verbal were creating their own vocal expressions in response. Students who were typically shy or less responsive were active participants in the world of play." So, those are a few highlights of the good things the Atlanta theater community is offering in terms of inclusivity for folks with disabilities. In addition to those highlights, I wanted to spotlight Jerry's Habima Theater. They're part of the Marcus Jewish Community Center in Atlanta, and they put on fully produced, professional-level productions each year, specifically with and for people with disabilities. They've been doing this for 27 seasons, and here is a picture of their recent production of Wizard of Oz. They also do school year drama and dance classes, summer camps. Basically, they cover it all. And they said, including people with disabilities in the Habima Theater Company brings joy and fulfillment to the actors, a chance to hone their skills, and a chance for the wider community to see their talents. They've made a long-term impact on Atlanta, so I thought they deserved to be recognized as an example of what's possible for both education and performance for people with disabilities and for the culture of Atlanta theater as a whole. Even though there's some really great things happening in the Atlanta theater community, the surveys indicated that there seem to be a few things across the board that are missing. First, half of the theaters that responded don't have performance opportunities for people with disabilities. The community of people with disabilities seem to be getting opportunities to learn and grow in theater, but not a platform to showcase and impact the rest of the community with their work. Next, a couple things came up about specific spaces and accessibility. For example, Serenbe Playhouse is an outdoor theater company, and this allows them to create immersive theatrical experiences for their patrons in the outdoors, but they did say that because their theater is outdoors, the space is difficult in terms of accessibility. Lastly, there aren't many options for programs specifically designed for people who experience disability. I read a lot about accommodation and the altering of curriculum to include people with disabilities, but not anything specifically for these people. So I realized this could be considered as a lack of equal opportunity, that we shouldn't just be including people with disabilities in theater for feel-good sentiment, but there are actual cultural benefits that come along with including this community of people in theater. For example, the benefits of empowerment and the deconstruction of hierarchies go together. When a person is on stage, they have presence, and presence equals power. On the other hand, when people are on stage, they're in charge. They command the space. Richard Tomlinson, who's the co-founder of a theater company for disabled actors in the United Kingdom, says that we often, quote, expect the crippled to act as crippled. But theater can help us change this stigma by allowing us to view strengths instead of deficits. Further, he comments on the ideas of empowerment and the deconstruction of hierarchies by arguing that the disabled actor is empowered by the act of controlling the theater medium for a certain time in front of the audience, and of course by being an object of the audience's attention. Next, another benefit is the intentional exploration of humanity. In other words, we can explore and identify the most important elements of our experience as humans. In barrier-free theater, Sally Bailey provides a great list of things theater allows us to do related to our humanity. For example, we can express personal experience, we can develop cultural awareness, we can play, and we can explore relationships. And I think over all of this, we could use the Declaration of Theater of the Oppressed principles, which is to humanize humanity. Often, the community of people who experience disability or neurodivergence are marginalized and, frankly, dehumanized. Theater can help us give that humanity back to them that they deserve. So once we understand the benefits to including people with disability in theater, we can create a specific value system. First, this value system largely centers around universal design, which means that when we create and develop education programs or build our physical theater spaces or cast productions, we should automatically create them to be accessible and usable to bodies and minds of all ranges of ability. Caitlin Ray, who is a PhD student studying composition and rhetoric at the University of Louisville, specifically focusing on disability studies, addresses this concept in her article On Your Feet by discussing the from the start concept. This basically says that our programs should be designed for people of all abilities from the start, instead of accommodating or retrofitting our programs and casting after they've been designed only for able bodies. Doing this allows us to see disability as a feature to explore aesthetically and artistically rather than something that holds people back. Now I'm going to use this time to propose some thoughts in the forms of questions, and I'm going to refer back to some of the information we learned from the responses to the survey. Atlanta Theater clearly has great opportunities for theater education, and most of the companies we heard from are willing to include people with disabilities in their education programs. But could we implement universal design into our theater education programs? How do we start conversations about funding and teacher training for education programs specifically designed for people with disabilities? And if we do have the resources to universally design, can we make sure to include some sort of formal showcase so that these individuals can impact others with their art? Those are a few thoughts to help continue fostering this discussion about disability justice in theater. Here are the sources that helped me develop my work and that I referenced during the presentation. And I'd like to end the presentation with a call to action. Support your local and regional theaters so that they do have the training and funding that they need to support these artists. Artists with disabilities deserve to be seen and heard, and their work is extremely valuable. Thank you so much.